They said a curse lived in his blood, but no one expected the father to do this. A year soaked in sweat, secrets, and sins no one dared to speak aloud, and in the center of it stood a boy who was never meant to survive, let alone be born. His name? Elias. A fragile frame, a quiet voice, hands that shook every time his father's boots hit the wooden floor. He wasn't weak by choice. He was weak because the world made him that way. Born early, born sick, born with a father who wanted a perfect heir, and called anything less a disappointment. Elias grew up hearing one sentence more than any lullaby: useless boys don't become men. His father, Colonel Harwood, said it so often the words felt carved into the boy's skin. The plantation whispered its own judgment. Workers looked at him with pity. Overseers looked at him with disgust. And the colonel? He looked at his only son the way a butcher looks at a cracked knife. Disappointed, angry, ready to replace it. But the real cruelty came the day a doctor rode in from Richmond. A tall man, white beard, cold eyes. After a single examination, he told the colonel the truth Elias already knew in his bones. He will never be strong. He will never lead. He is unfit, even for reproduction. The plantation went silent. The colonel's jaw tightened. Something ugly twisted inside his chest. A storm. A decision. A plan no sane father would ever consider. Because in 1859, power wasn't just held. It was abused. And the colonel carried the kind of power that crushed anyone beneath it. That night, while Elias coughed in the corner of his room, his father stared out the window at the row of cabins, at the people they called the Iron Body. A woman stronger than any man on the plantation. A woman who never bowed, never broke, never bent. Her name was Mara. And in that moment, in a decision born from cruelty, ego, and fear, Colonel Harwood chose a path that would destroy everything. He would give his son to her, and nothing would ever be the same again. If you want to know what happened next, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe so you never miss the next. He thought the worst was over, but the night was just beginning. Night fell heavy over the plantation, too quiet, too still, as if the land itself sensed what the colonel was planning. Mara stood outside her cabin, arms crossed, watching the sky burn orange from the last light of day. Her shoulders were broad, her palms were calloused, her presence alone made grown men straighten their backs. She wasn't feared because she was violent. She was feared because she refused to be broken. For years, overseers tried to beat that spirit out of her. They failed. Chains tried to weaken her. They failed. The colonel himself tried to crush her rebellion. He failed too. And that failure gnawed at him like rot in the bone. Inside the big house, Elias sat on the edge of his bed, hands trembling, breath thin. He didn't know the whole plan, only that his father had given a command: be ready. Ready for what? No one told him. But he felt it. A cold pull in the air, a wrongness he couldn't name. The colonel's footsteps echoed down the hallway, heavy, purposeful. Each step a hammer striking the boy's ribs. The door opened. The colonel didn't enter. He just stared at Elias with those frozen eyes. "Come," he said. Elias followed, silent, each step slower than the last. The staircase creaked, the front door groaned open, and outside, the path to the cabins glowed faintly under the moon. The walk felt endless. Elias's breath fogged in front of him. The colonel marched like a man convinced he was doing the right thing, as if cruelty became acceptable when wrapped in the illusion of purpose. They reached Mara's cabin. The colonel didn't knock. He didn't need to. Mara stepped out before he could raise a hand. She knew. She always knew. Her eyes shifted from the colonel to Elias, a boy, small, frail, scared. For the first time in years, her expression cracked. Not with fear, not with anger, but with confusion. "What is this?" she said. The colonel folded his arms, his voice sharp enough to cut stone. "You will take him." Mara's jaw tightened. "Why?" The colonel leaned forward, face shadowed by moonlight. "Because he is unfit to be a man. And you're the only one strong enough to fix that." Elias felt his stomach twist. Mara's fists clenched. The night grew colder. Something monstrous had begun. If you want next, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe so you never miss what happens next. Mara could break iron with her bare hands, but what she faced that night was heavier than chains. The moon hung low over the cabins, a cold witness, a silent judge. Elias stood frozen, breath shallow, eyes darting between his father and Mara. He didn't understand the plan, not fully, but he felt its weight like a blade pressed to his spine. Mara stepped closer, slow, controlled. Her presence alone pulled the air tighter. She studied the boy, his thin wrists, his shaking fingers, his fear. Then her gaze snapped to the colonel, sharp, burning, defiant. "What do you want from him?" she asked. The colonel's lips curled as if the question insulted him. "I want him to become strong." A pause, a darker whisper. "By any means." Mara's jaw clenched. She knew exactly what that meant. The world he controlled wasn't built on mercy. It was built on ownership, breeding, and brutality dressed as order. Elias tried to step back. His heel hit the dirt. His voice cracked. "Father, please." The colonel didn't even look at him. Weakness didn't deserve attention, not in his eyes. Mara exhaled slowly, a sound full of anger she could not show openly. "Children are not tools," she said. The colonel's eyes hardened. "On this land, everything is a tool." Silence, heavy, violent, the kind that chokes more than any rope. Mara looked at Elias again, not with pity, not with fear, but with a strange recognition. She had seen children like him before. Children born into cruelty they never chose. Then she stepped between the boy and the colonel, a bold move, a dangerous one. The colonel's voice sharpened. "Do you refuse me?" Mara didn't flinch. "I will not harm him, but I will take him, not because you command it, but because he needs protection from the man he calls father." For the first time, Elias felt something shift. A shield, a barrier, a chance. The colonel's eyes narrowed like a blade narrowing to a point. He didn't shout, He didn't argue. He simply turned, walked away, and left a storm behind him. Elias stood trembling in the doorway. Mara motioned him inside. "Come," she said softly. "You are safe here. For tonight." But even she didn't know safety would not last long. If you want to continue this dark story, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss next. He thought stepping into her cabin meant safety, but some doors open to truths that cut deeper than fear. Elias crossed the threshold slowly. His bare feet met the warm wooden floor. The air smelled of herbs, smoke, and strength, a world completely different from the cold echo of the big house. Mara closed the door behind them, not slamming, not harsh, just firm, final. Like drawing a line the colonel could not cross without a fight. Elias stood in the center of the room, unsure where to put his hands, his eyes, his fear. Mara watched him carefully, not like a master watches property, but like a warrior sizing up a wound before tending to it. "You sit," she said. He nodded and sank onto a small wooden stool. His legs shook so much they almost gave out beneath him. Mara knelt, her massive hands wrapped gently around his wrists, and for the first time in his life, Elias felt strength that didn't try to crush him. "You're frightened," she said. He swallowed hard. "Yes." "Good. Fear keeps you alive." She released his wrists. "But it cannot guide you." Elias lifted his eyes. "Why is he doing this to me?" Mara didn't answer at first. She walked to a small shelf, grabbed a cloth, dipped it in cool water, and returned to dab the boy's forehead. "Because men like your father fear weakness," she said, "and when they fear something, they try to destroy it." Elias closed his eyes. Her words hit deeper than any blow. Mara continued, voice low, steady. "And because he believes strength is something you can force into someone. But strength," she tapped his chest lightly, "comes from surviving what should have broken you." Elias felt tears rise, not from pain, but from understanding. Then a sudden knock shook the door, hard, urgent, not friendly. Mara stiffened. Her eyes narrowed. Her shoulders rose like a mountain preparing for a storm. Elias flinched. Is it him?" Mara shook her head. "No, his steps are heavier." The knock came again, faster. Then a voice, raspy, terrified. "Mara, open! Something's happening at the big house." Mara grabbed Elias by the arm and pulled him behind her. Her breath sharpened, her muscles coiled. The door swung open, and a man stumbled inside, drenched in sweat, eyes wild with panic. His voice cracked as he pointed toward the mansion. "It's the colonel! He's bleeding!" Mara froze. Elias gasped. And the night took a darker turn than either of them expected. The colonel never bled. Not in public, not in front of anyone. So if he was bleeding tonight, someone had broken the unbreakable. Mara's eyes sharpened like steel. Elias clung to her arm, breath trembling, heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst. The man who delivered the news, Jacob, leaned against the wall, clutching his ribs as if the fear inside him might spill out. "He's on the floor," Jacob gasped. "The colonel's on the floor, and he ain't waking up." Mara didn't react with relief, or fear, or joy. Only calculation. There was always danger when power shifted, especially when that power was cruel. "Who did this?" she asked. Jacob shook his head violently. "No idea. Someone hit him from behind, hard, real hard." Elias felt the room spin. His father, the man made of iron and anger, brought down in the dark. Mara grabbed a cloak from a hook near the door. "We need to see," she said. Elias stiffened. "I can't go there." "You must," she replied. "Whatever happens next will involve you. You need to understand the world you stand in." Her words settled heavy in his chest, but he nodded. The three slipped into the night. The wind cut sharper than before. The path to the mansion seemed longer, colder, hungrier. Lanterns flickered near the porch. Shadows twisted across the walls like warning signs carved by the moon. Inside, voices murmured in panic. Footsteps rushed. A door slammed. Then, silence. Mara entered first, shoulders squared, eyes sweeping the room like a blade. Elias followed, each step heavier than the last. And there he was, the Colonel, sprawled across the wooden floor, face pale, blood streaking from the back of his skull. Elias froze. A memory flashed, his father's voice calling him weak, useless, unfit. But now, the strongest man he knew looked smaller than ever. Mara knelt beside the body. Her fingers brushed the wound. Her jaw tightened. "This wasn't a fall," she said. "This was rage." Jacob swallowed hard. "You mean one of us?" Mara didn't answer. Instead, she turned slowly, and her eyes landed on Elias. A chill shot through him. He shook his head instantly. "No, I didn't. I wasn't." "I know," Mara said firmly, "but his enemies are many, and tonight one of them struck first." Footsteps echoed down the hallway, quick, hard. Soldiers. The door burst open, rifles raised, eyes burning with blame. "There!" one shouted. "Step away from the Colonel!" Mara rose slowly, shielding Elias with her body. But the soldiers weren't looking at her. Their rifles didn't point at the bleeding man or the servant who found him. They pointed directly at Elias. "The boy," one growled. "He's the only one with reason." Elias felt his heart stop. Tonight, he wasn't just weak, he was framed. If you want next, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe so you never miss what happens next. The Colonel never bled. Not in public, not in front of anyone. So if he was bleeding tonight, someone had broken the unbreakable. Mara's eyes sharpened like steel. Elias clung to her arm, breath trembling, heart pounding so hard he thought it might burst. The man who delivered the news, Jacob, leaned against the wall, clutching his ribs as if the fear inside him might spill out. "He's on the floor," Jacob gasped. "The Colonel's on the floor, and he ain't waking up." Mara didn't react with relief, or fear, or joy. Only calculation. There was always danger when power shifted, especially when that power was cruel. "Who did this?" she asked. Jacob shook his head violently. "No idea. Someone hit him from behind, hard, real hard." Elias felt the room spin. His father, the man made of iron and anger, brought down in the dark. Mara grabbed a cloak from a hook near the door. "We need to see," she said. Elias stiffened. "I can't go there." "You must," she replied. "Whatever happens next will involve you. You need to understand the world you stand in." Her words settled heavy in his chest, but he nodded. The three slipped into the night. The wind cut sharper than before. The path to the mansion seemed longer, colder, hungrier. Lanterns flickered near the porch. Shadows twisted across the walls like warning signs carved by the moon. Inside, voices murmured in panic. Footsteps rushed. A door slammed. Then, silence. Mara entered first, shoulders squared, eyes sweeping the room like a blade. Elias followed, each step heavier than the last. And there he was, the Colonel, sprawled across the wooden floor, face pale, blood streaking from the back of his skull. Elias froze. A memory flashed, his father's voice calling him weak, useless, unfit. But now, the strongest man he knew looked smaller than ever. Mara knelt beside the body. Her fingers brushed the wound. Her jaw tightened. "This wasn't a fall," she said. "This was rage." Jacob swallowed hard. "You mean one of us?" Mara didn't answer. Instead, she turned slowly, and her eyes landed on Elias. A chill shot through him. He shook his head instantly. "No, I didn't. I wasn't." "I know," Mara said firmly, "but his enemies are many, and tonight one of them struck first." Footsteps echoed down the hallway, quick, hard. Soldiers. The door burst open, rifles raised, eyes burning with blame. "There!" one shouted. "Step away from the colonel!" Mara rose slowly, shielding Elias with her body. But the soldiers weren't looking at her. Their rifles didn't point at the bleeding man or the servant who found him. They pointed directly at Elias. "The boy," one growled. "He's the only one with reason." Elias felt his heart stop. Tonight, he wasn't just weak, he was framed. If you want next, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe so you never miss what happens next. He didn't touch the colonel, but everyone in the room was ready to hang him for it. Rifles stayed fixed on Elias. Cold metal, hot suspicion. The kind that didn't wait for proof. Only someone small enough to blame. Elias staggered backward. "I didn't do anything. I wasn't even here." The soldiers didn't flinch. Didn't blink, didn't doubt. Weak boys made easy targets, and the colonel's cruelty had carved that truth deep into the soil. Mara stepped forward instantly, her body a wall of iron, her voice low, heavy, dangerous. "You point a gun at him," she said. "You point a gun at me." The soldiers hesitated, not because of fear, but because they knew what she was. A storm, a force, the kind of strength no bullet could tame quickly. Jacob raised his hands, trying to calm the crackling air. "Listen, the boy came with us. He wasn't near the house. Y'all know this ain't right." But fear made men blind, and panic made them stupid. The lead soldier stepped forward. A scar cut across his cheek. His eyes glowed with twisted certainty. The colonel hated that boy. Everyone knew it. Sometimes hate is a seed, and tonight it grew. Elias felt the room tilting. He could barely breathe. Mara's voice sliced the air. "You think a child could do this? Look at the wound. Look at the force. That was a grown man's blow." But logic meant nothing. Not tonight. Not with a powerful man bleeding on the floor. The scarred soldier leaned closer to Elias. "Someone's going to answer for this. And unless someone else steps forward, it's you." Elias shook his head violently. Tears burned. Fear tightened around his throat like rope. "I didn't hurt him. I swear." Mara grabbed Elias's arm. "We're leaving." The soldiers raised their rifles. "You're not taking him anywhere." Mara's eyes narrowed. The storm hiding behind silence. But before she could move, before the soldiers could fire, a voice echoed from the staircase. "Enough!" Everyone turned. Mrs. Harwood, the colonel's wife, stood at the top of the stairs. Tall, rigid, eyes red from tears, and something darker. She descended slowly. Every step filled the room with a chill deeper than night. When she reached the bottom, her gaze locked onto Elias, not with sorrow, not with anger, but with a strange, eerie calm. She said, "The boy didn't do this." The soldiers stiffened.
Jacob sighed of relief. Elias nearly collapsed. But then she added, voice tightening like a noose, because he couldn't. He doesn't have the strength. Her eyes shifted to Mara. But you do. The room froze. Mara didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't move. Mrs. Harwood stepped closer, her voice sharpened. You're the only one powerful enough to kill my husband. Elias gasped. The soldiers turned their guns, and now they were pointed at Mara. If you want next, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next of this story.
Some doors should never be opened. Some truths should never be uncovered. Eli was about to learn both. The forest went silent, too silent. A cold wind crawled through the trees, the kind that carried whispers, whispers that weren't human. Eli froze. His breath, it just stopped, because in front of him, half buried in the dirt, was a boot. A soldier's boot, fresh, untouched by time. He knelt, touched it. It was warm. Someone had been standing here seconds ago. A twig snapped behind him, slow, deliberate, like someone wanted him to know he wasn't alone. Eli didn't turn around, couldn't. Something in the air pressed on his shoulders, heavy, suffocating, alive. The whisper came again, right beside his ear, low, breathing. Not a word, a warning. He ran, feet pounding, heart screaming, branches clawing at his face, but the forest, it moved with him. Trees shifting, shadows following, like the whole place was awake and angry. At the edge of the clearing, he saw it, a figure, tall, still, facing the old ruined bunker. He stepped closer. The figure turned, slow, mechanical, and Eli's stomach dropped, because the face staring back at him was the missing captain, but older, broken, eyes hollow, like he'd been standing in this forest for decades, yet his uniform was still spotless, still new. The captain raised one hand, pointed at the bunker door. Eli swallowed, stepped forward, every instinct screaming no, every memory pulling him in. He grabbed the rusted handle, and the door creaked open by itself. Darkness breathed out, thick, rotten, alive. Eli whispered, "God, help me," and stepped inside. If you want to see what horrors await Eli in next, like, share, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next terrifying. Some secrets should stay buried, but Eli had just stepped into the heart of darkness. The bunker smelled of rot, metal, and something else, something alive. Eli's feet scraped the stone floor. His hands trembled. The air was thick, suffocating. Every breath tasted like fear. Shadows twisted along the walls, shifting, breathing, watching. A low creak echoed from the corner. Eli froze. He strained his ears. Nothing moved. Then a voice whispered, soft, horrible, "You shouldn't be here." Eli spun. Nothing. Just darkness. Just silence. Then the whisper came again, closer this time. "Leave, or you'll never leave alive." He stumbled forward. The bunker seemed endless, a maze of stone, metal, and decay. A figure appeared in the shadows, tall, thin, covered in a cloak of black, eyes glowing faintly red. Eli's chest tightened. Who are you?" he stammered. The figure didn't answer. It just raised a hand, slowly, deliberately. Suddenly, walls shifted. Stone grinding against stone. The floor trembled. A deep, echoing growl filled the room. Eli's knees buckled. The figure advanced, steps silent, predatory. He realized he wasn't alone. Not just the figure, not just the shadows. Something else lurked deeper. Something ancient. Something angry. The air grew colder, breath visible. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. A door slammed somewhere in the bunker, echoed like a gunshot. Eli flinched. His foot caught a stone. He fell. The figure loomed above him, eyes burning with some unholy fire. Eli's mouth went dry. He tried to speak. No sound came. Then the figure leaned closer. Its voice rasped like metal scraping stone. "You've come too far to leave alive." Eli scrambled backward. His back hit the wall. No escape. A sudden noise behind him. Something crashing. Something alive. Something bigger. The figure hissed, stepped back, and the shadows behind it began to move. Fingers of darkness stretching, twisting toward Eli. He screamed, and the bunker swallowed him whole. If you want to see how Eli survives, or if he even survives, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe for the thrilling conclusion in Next. The darkness wasn't just around him, it was inside him. And tonight, Eli would face it all. The bunker trembled, shadows lunged, fingers of darkness twisting toward him. Eli's heart pounded like war drums. Mara's voice echoed in his memory. "Strength comes from surviving what should have broken you." He remembered every step, every choice, every fear. He clenched his fists, closed his eyes, and faced the shadows. "Not tonight!" he shouted. A flash of light cut through the darkness. Mara appeared behind her. Her hands glowed faintly with fire, or maybe it was rage. The shadows recoiled, hissing, shrieking. But Eli didn't run. He stood. The tall figure stepped forward, eyes burning red, teeth bared, a growl that shook the walls. Eli raised his voice. "Leave him alone!" The figure paused. Recognition flashed in its eyes. Then it lunged. Time slowed. Eli dodged. Mara struck with a force that split the shadows apart. The figure screamed, metallic, hollow, human. A final blow. The figure collapsed. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Eli fell to his knees, gasping. Mara stood beside him. Eyes soft, tired, proud. "We survive," she said, "because we refuse to break." The shadows dissolved. The bunker felt lighter. Air returned to his lungs. Freedom tasted sharp and sweet. Eli looked around. The colonel's power, gone. Mrs. Harwood, gone into hiding. The plantation, quiet. For the first time, the world felt like it belonged to him. He remembered what Mara taught him. Strength isn't given, it's earned. Through fear, through pain, through surviving what should have destroyed you. Eli stood. He was still small, still fragile, but inside, he was fire. Mara placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have survived. Now live." He nodded. The future was uncertain, but he was ready. The sun began to rise. A new day, a new life. And for the first time, Eli felt hope. If you were on the edge of your seat with Eli's journey, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to see more dark, cinematic, suspenseful stories like this.